Hey there, students. This is Miss Leahy again, and we're still talking about those cool ebooks that you're writing with informational text. It's nonfiction. So, in this short video, I'm going to help you a little bit more with pictures, some images, and things you can do with them besides just the regular rectangle. And I'm also going to talk to you about text boxes and how to make your work look like a professional, like a real live published informational text. So let's get started. I'm on a page that has a template, and that template has some text boxes here. It has a subtitle, text, subtitle, and the text. The only thing difference is this is bolded and this is not. And then we have one picture here that I put on. And of course, I already cited it on my sources page. So let's get started with the pictures. So maybe you already know this, but I want to just make sure that you know of all the options that you can do to make your picture pop on the screen. So I'm going to click on it once to get that editing tool. And then what I do is I can come up here to the toolbar, and you'll notice that when I don't have it clicked, there are no tools for pictures. But when I do click it once, that editing tool shows up on my picture, and then the tools show up here. So the first thing I can look at is I can change the border color. So instead of having no border, I can actually choose a border color. If I'd like to have the computer pick it for me, I can choose one of these theme colors. Actually, I am going to click the green because I like that a lot. And I click away, and now I get a very faint green border. So what I really want to do is make that border pop a little bit. So I go to the next tool, which is called Border Weight. So I'm going to increase the pixel size of the border to 4. And that looks a little bit better. I think I want to make it, though, a different kind of dash. Instead of a solid line, I think I'd like it a dotted line. And you can tell it's similar to this right here. So now you know how your teacher made that template for the text box. She just made a text box with a gray dotted line around it. So I like that. So I'm going to keep that. But wait a minute. What if I wanted my picture not to be a rectangle? Maybe I wanted my picture to be a different shape. So here's how you do that. You click once on the picture, and then there's a tiny arrow. That's a drop down arrow that's right here next to the crop image tool. And we'll talk about the cropping tool in just a moment. I click on that tiny arrow, that's the drop down arrow, and I can choose another shape. For instance, I can choose a circle. And now I click away, and there you have it. There's an oval. Now you may wonder, well, I chose the circle, and now the system made it an oval. Well, if I click on the undo arrow, I can see that my picture was actually a rectangle. So the system has kind of an understanding that since the picture is long, that when you want to make a new shape, you'd still want to see as much of the picture as possible. So that's why it makes it an oval. You could always change it into a circle if you wanted to, and I'll show you a few other things. Here is one that's a heart. Maybe you have a hobby that you love. So maybe it's a picture of that hobby and you have it in the shape of a heart now. And one thing I would like to remind you of, if you do pick a shape, I want you to be remembering that when I double click, I can move the picture around the shape to have it focus on a different part than whatever is in the center. But remember that when I click away, if you don't have that photo inside the shape, there's going to be a gap. And that gap is here, and the gap is also down here, and that actually doesn't look good. So you want to be aware of the shape and compare it to the picture that you have. So you either need to find a better picture that will focus on the part that you want it to be focused on, or you need to go back to the original picture and just drag it back so that you see, um, when you click away, you see that the heart or whatever the shape is completely filled up with the photograph. And again, I just want to remind you that you can change the border weight and you can change the line, dash, and then also you can rotate that picture so it's a little bit more at an angle. And I could actually move this onto a text box, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. The next thing I want to do is I want to talk about the text boxes. So you have a template, and the template was created by a teacher who made some text boxes on the pages of your book. So a book page has text written on it. So when you put your subtitle and then you put your text, and I'm just going to say this is practice, I want to remind you that you can click away from your text box and you can see how that looks on your page. And if you wanted that text box to stay like that, that is going to look a little bit unusual to have this much empty space with nothing written. So you either need to add a few more sentences, or I would encourage you to click once on the text box and move that text box up so it's more in balance. So your text is in a box that's the size that's more appropriate. But I also want to take the time here to remind you that in real life, text is on a page. When you open up a book, you don't see page after page of text boxes. You just see text. So let me show you kind of what I'm talking about here, and then we'll talk about how you get it like that. So here's a page, and here's what I'm talking about. You're seeing text here. You don't see that the text is in a text box, but that's the text box. You can click to see it, but it's actually invisible. So when you are finished making your text boxes that are inside and they're part of the template, what you really need to do is you need to click on the text box, and then you need to come up here to the border color and you need to choose transparent. And that way it takes the dotted line away. Now, is the text box still there? Yes. It's kind of like we talked about the other day. You don't, just because you click away doesn't mean the text box disappeared. It's just invisible now. And now it's visible to you. So you need to do that at the end of your, when you're finished with your book, at the end of your rough draft, and you're finishing it up and getting it ready for somebody to look at and edit and critique, it would probably be a good idea to take away these text box templates so that it looks like a real book, that there's text on the page. Now, when I say real book, I also want to remind you that real books do look like this also. They have pictures on them, and they also have text inside text boxes. This text box actually is a text circle, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. And they also have headings inside text boxes. But also remember that it is your responsibility to go ahead and take out the template, that little gray dotted line that you have, so that it looks like a typical page in a book. So let's go ahead and talk about how I got this text box to be a circle. So I'm going to go back to that page here. I'm going to come right here. This is a practice. Well, I'm going to move this all up. So I'm going to make some room right here for a circle, because I want some text in a circle and I want it to kind of match with the text that I'm going to put in this box. So I come up here to my shape tool. I click on the shape tool and I pick the shape that I want to write inside of. So it's basically I'm making a new kind of text box. So in this case, I'd like to do the circle. So I'm going to click on the circle, and then I'm going to click and drag and make that circle what I want it to be, the size I want it to be, I should say. Then I double click, pizza, kind of like Little Caesars pizza. And when I do that, my cursor shows up in the middle of the circle, and I can type in a sentence or two, or maybe just a title, or maybe just fun facts, or something that just eye-catching for the reader, to draw their attention to a certain part of that page. Remember that when you type in the circle or any shape, it's always a good idea to make sure that the text is aligned in the center. So I don't know if you noticed, but I highlighted all my text and then I come to the alignment tool. It looks like some lines that are lined up to the left. That's left alignment. Then there's center alignment, and then there's right alignment, and the last one is justified, meaning they're equally lined up. I'm choosing the center, and you'll see what might happen to my text. And then I can click away. If I don't like the way that looks, I can change it with the same kind of tools that I use to change my photograph boundaries, or borders, I should say. I can do a fill color. I can change the color of my boundary or my border. I can change the thickness, and of course I can change the type of line that I have, the dash that I have. And now I can put this circle by clicking and moving it. Notice I'm waiting. I click once and I wait until I see a four-headed arrow, which is there, and then I can click and I can drag. Now, one more thing that I'd like to talk about before I leave is that I'd like to, besides reminding you that you need to get rid of these invisible template areas, you also can layer things, layer text boxes and photographs. So I don't know if you noticed, but this circle is on top of the heart. I'm going to make the heart a little bit bigger. And I actually really think I want the heart on top of the circle. So I don't know if you noticed, but I can't just click on it and make it go, in front of or on top of, depending on your perspective. So how I get that to change is I click once on the thing that you want layered on top, and I right click, which is the snake bite click on a Chromebook, and then I choose order. And when I choose order, if I want it up at the top, then I'm going to say bring to front. And sure enough, now my heart is on top of that circle. The same thing happens with text boxes. Let me go to a slide that has, there we go. Here we have a text box. And this picture I'd like to have underneath the text box. So I can either right click here, choose order and send backwards. Oh, that looks good. If I wanted to though, I'm going to click undo. I could have chosen this one. And if I move this, if I wanted that on top, I could have right clicked and chosen order bring to front. Now this bring forward and send to back, those are two choices that when you have probably more than two things that you're working with. Let's say I have a text box here and then I have two pictures. So maybe I want the text box on top because I would have to say that this is not good to have some of your words behind a picture. You need people to be able to read your words. So I'm going to click once and I'm going to choose order, and then I'm going to choose bring forward. And when I bring forward, it does come in front of this picture. But did you notice that's behind this picture? So I would really want, if I wanted this completely on top, I would right click and choose bring to front. Bring to front means no matter what else is going on, it's going to be on the top, whatever you just chose. And sure enough, now that text box is on the top. I want you to be aware of this. Remember, overall, and everything you do with your ebook is your content should come first. So please make sure that you have really written really, good and interesting information for your ebook. Don't forget that you are taking away that dotted template text box so that the people that are reading your book don't read everything in a text box. and then add little touches of text boxes that might be in a shape or maybe in a box, and then also make your touches that are, make little touches to make your photographs really pop and shine. Thanks for listening.